Alright everyone, it's time for the Occult video number 345. Cowardly dabblers are beneath me. Of course, you can tell that I'm a genuine user of magic because I've got a cat next to me that I'm petting. Makes me look a little bit like an evil genius from a B-movie, one of the lesser Bond films or something like that. But I mean, connections to animals, they can be a little bit occult in nature. Anyway, I wanted to address the plethora of people over the course of now more than a decade who they want to lecture me on spiritual topics, but they really don't know what the fuck they're talking about. Now, generally, when I say that I'm an occultist, I see that as a search for truth. It's a spiritual venture, but it's not an organized religious one. And I pointed this out in one of the books that I wrote, actually, long ago. I think it was 2014 or 15 or something, so it's been a while. I spoke about this basic topic. There's a trifecta within the spiritual systems of mankind. The first is the most superficial argument that most people have. That's theism versus atheism and all other possible avenues there. So you can be a theist, you believe in a god or a pantheon. You can be an atheist, which means you don't believe in these things. You can be apatheistic, which means you don't care. And then there are variants on godliness, and including atheism. I would say some atheists do believe effectively in what would be generally regarded as a spiritual existence, but they subjugate it to physics. They'd say, well, because of string theory, my consciousness lives on when I die, but there's no God governing it. It's physics. It's really science. And that happens. Another part is whether you're religious or not. So you do or do not endorse, attend, involve yourself with what we would consider religious services or organization, membership in a church or something, or a temple. Of course, I'm irreligious. In fact, I'm outright anti-religious. I think that churches would be better converted into lighthouses. I'm very Benjamin Franklin-esque on that. As far as theism goes, I'm apatheistic. I don't claim to know that there's no God. Could be. It could also be there's matrix theory. There could be that there's literally nothing. I've stopped caring about that argument for various reasons. The third is spirituality, and this is the one I spend the most time on. Whether or not you are spiritual. Do you believe in something beyond the general, mundane, and explainable? The answer for me is yes. I believe in magic. I have no hesitance in saying that. I've been saying it for the better part of a decade, so who cares? Some people I notice find this cringy, and they've come in two forms. People who wear fedoras and people who go to church regularly. They supposedly believe in angels and demons and all these things, but they don't think that they have any power. They've fallen far from the tree, I suppose, because of course their ancestors not even 100 years ago invariably did believe that they had various powers. There was possession. There was angelic guidance. God could literally speak to you if he wanted to, or at least spoke to people in the past. Somehow, around the time that people developed the telegraph, God went silent. He became a mute. I know that I'm limiting this technically to a criticism of the more Western Christian-esque world, and Judaism and offshoots that are present there, but it's happening elsewhere. We see this in Hinduism. If you've ever watched Hindi TV, religious programming of one sort, even their fucking news channels actually, you're going to see a lot of televangelist-style hucksterism. Well, this little Hanuman statue for however many rupees, I can't do that, like $24.99 or something. This Hanuman statue will bless your household. You'll have more money. This Ganesha statue will keep witches away from your house. I wish this was hyperbole, but before you think that that's too strange, keep in mind that a considerable group, at least a sizable minority of Westerners, believe the same thing. They'll burn candles to Mother Mary or to some saint. They'll have little talismans in their car. They have little evil eye amulets. The Islamic world is rife with those. If you go to Turkey, you'll see them everywhere. I've seen them here in the Netherlands in places where the people that are employed there are clearly of Turkish extraction. You'll know this because Turkish Airways is a signpost literally on the wall. That's not far from here, by the way. Cool dudes, but, it's technically speaking, it's a superstition. It's spiritual. It's not necessarily religious. It's a pre-Islamic derivation that they use. But what I wanted to talk about more deeply was people who are cowardly dabblers. That is, people who will bitch about my spiritual beliefs in one form or another. It doesn't bother me at this point, but it irks me when people are in error. So don't think this is about ego or anything like that for me, like I know more than you. No, this is more like you're straight up wrong. I can prove you're fucking wrong. Why do you persist in these delusions, in this stupidity? And it happens on a goddamn regular basis. There are people out there that think that they burn a candle to a saint, a lump of wax with a wick in it. It was probably made in a box store. It wasn't made handmade by some witch or something that actually prays to the old gods and has statues in her basement. It was built in a modern factory. That factory could be repurposed in a week and make car components or something. They think that by burning this candle, it'll give them blessings. You see people who are internet-only occultists, that's the only place in which they study any variant of spirituality, bitching about other people and their spiritual beliefs. I've had personal run-ins by people who will constantly invoke the occult, sometimes to try to frighten me. This happened on ICQ years ago. Some weirdo on there was rambling about I can't remember, Wicca or something, trying to say he was going to curse me, and I'm like shrugging it off because I understood, even as a non-Wiccan, by that point more about the subject than he probably did. Constantly rambling about how my ancestors did voodoo, and, you know, here's my, I don't know, authentic voodoo book or something. I read tarot cards, and your fortune says you will die. In a more authentic occult sense, with people who are maybe negative-minded psychics, or I would call them New Age fucking hippies, you're actually cursing yourself. So, you know, according to the New Age definition, obviously you're not a real occultist unless you're a masochist. And if you're that, you should admit that. Instead of saying, I do spells or something, you should say, hey, I've got whips and chains in my basement and they ain't for the other person. And then you have people across a wide variety of religions, pretty much any religion that I've encountered, who have these weird beliefs, and they think that they know everything. And sometimes they're more limited in the sense that they're religious. So a person will be like really, really religious, like a fundamentalist Christian. And they say, well, I know all about my religion. Well, they've read the Bible. They've read Joyce Meyer's or Charles Stanley book or something. Their understanding of their religion, and this is again just part of that trifecta of the spiritual experience, is very, very slim. They know one particular interpretation of one particular religion. Spiritually, they're empty. They don't have any spiritual views. They read it in a book. They didn't get any deeper meaning usually from that. They don't even have religious experiences in the general sense. Spiritual experiences, rather. They're theists. They believe in a God. But while they claim a personal relationship, God isn't talking to them. They think they hear God, and that God happens to coincidentally say over and over, you're right, and people you don't like are wrong. Your religion, and the interpretation thereof, rather, is right. The other people, they're interpreting it incorrectly. Don't worry, you're going to heaven. They're probably, at the very least, they're going to go to purgatory. Then they'll see your way, and they'll go to heaven too, or they won't, and they'll go to hell. This is so common within religion, I've noticed. But it's also common within non-religious spirituality. That is, people that don't fall in the main line, they have some Santa Maria or something belief. They delve into maybe elements of paganism, elements of magic, etc., etc. Maybe they're not even a member of an organized religion, or they'll say they're a Christian, but they also delve into spells and mysticism and stuff, which I, by the way, don't have a problem with. I know some fundamentalists do. They're Islamic, but mostly they're interested in spell casting. They're a Jew, but they mainly care about Kabbalah. So they're more on the spiritual side. They're not in the mainline religious side of going to the mosque, going to the Wailing Wall and praying, and that's sort of the end-all be-all of their religious experience. But they still have all of these vacuous, overarching, very egotistical takes on spirituality. You've wronged me in some way. I'm a practitioner of the hoodoo religion. You're going to be cursed. Never once thinking about the possibility that they may be wrong. And this is, again, common to all religions. It's common to the occult. It's common to all of these things. The worst part, though, and in closing here, the worst part is that these people expect to be taken seriously, as some of them expect to be feared, I think, just by making insinuations about their supposed magic power. I can only laugh. It's self-evident that they're full of shit. That much is even in the secular sense fairly clear. I think the hardline atheists would agree with it. But it's horseshit. Even a proper interpretation of many of these religions and all of the sub-spiritual beliefs would show you that it's bullshit. When you've read thousands of books, when you've edited hundreds of them, by the way, when you actually live magic and are magic instead of simply being a part of one sub-school of occultism, then get back to me and maybe I'll take you seriously, is what I would hope to say to these people. The problem is, of course, their ears are shut. Their eyes are closed. They're not going to listen. They think that their shit don't stink, in other words. They're the end-all, be-all of magical poobah supremacy. They expect others to take them seriously. Maybe if they looked at the shit, the failings in their own lives in many cases, they'd realize why. That's about all. Peace out.